thank you for the reflection too, because I don't often realize what I've come through. But you know, it was like you know, my dissatisfaction, and I was not going to be content with diagnosis of psoriatic arthritis and multiple sclerosis as well. Although, you know, I had to realize that the, you know, Western medical system had to work with the with those diagnoses, but I realized inside my mind very strongly that if I attached to that narrative inside myself, then my body started to follow in suit. It was good to know what had happened to me at the convergence point, but there was a huge energetic shift in me in what I was engaging with, and what I decided to heal myself, because you know, in my mind I was like, I've got a life to live here.
We have been given the scientific knowledge, the technical ability, and the materials to pursue the exploration of the universe. To ignore these great resources would be a corruption of a God-given ability.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Stefan Burns Live number 10, and today I'm joined by Phil Jacobs of Toronto Sound Therapy. He is the founder, the big boss of Toronto Sound Therapy, and we're going to have a great conversation today on all things energy and consciousness in the brain, and really linking together things like Schumann resonances, these natural energy fields, brain waves, sound therapy, and also the neuroscience behind all this, and even going to things like Chinese medicine and Taoist principles. So welcome, Phil. Thanks so much for joining me. It's good to see you again after our retreat in Costa Rica. How you feeling?
Beautiful. Great, excited. It's great to connect, and I'm excited. I've been since we met in Costa Rica, I've been looking forward to this conversation and really delving into what I call nerding out and geeking out on science and connection to the earth and the universe.
Yeah, do you feel your brainwaves like tingling?
I do. All up here. I would love to see my brain monitored right now to see what's happening up there.
As long as it's not a a wireless relay. If it's a wired, I'd be all for that. Hook me up. But it's the wireless stuff that I'm not a fan of. I took a tidal wave this morning and did some yin yoga, and went into the really deep, like introspective state. And there was one pose where it's called straddle, and you really like stretch your quads, and I was able to feel into like some of those deeper energies and the pain, like some of that trauma. And I realized like this is all from like my old like powerlifting and bodybuilding years. And I put so much like pressure and tension in my body, trying to like prove myself. And so when I was in this pose, I was just like, I see this, I recognize it. Like, I just want you to heal now. And then the pain just like melted away.
Beautiful.
And so that's just like my just today, my little story of how sometimes it's sitting with like finding those points and then sitting with them or recognizing them helps these traumas to just release, and that it doesn't have to be this difficult thing. But you have a lot more experience in terms of helping others with, in terms of being a therapist, and how some of these stuck energies can be difficult to like, first off, like find the root of it, and then to like get the right key to unlock it, and then to actually like sweep it out. And can you go through some of like your primary methods? I mean, sound is one of them, Toronto Sound Therapy. But just if you give kind of a holistic, comprehensive overview of that,
Sure.
that'd be great.
Sure. Well, thank you for your vulnerability and your experience this morning with the mushroom. Tidal wave is a very powerful and potent medicine, and also yoga is sort of getting to connect with what's happening in the body, which is the most important with any sort of therapy, whether you're using sound, vibrations, if you're using talk therapy or using movement, stretch, breath work, and everything is really connecting and observing what's happening internally, where the vibration of the psilocybin and the mushroom are going to help the nervous system drop in and become aware. And then the combination of observing, this is so powerful in any therapy, is your internal observation of what's going on. And I'm going to bring the quantum particle experiment in where,
Mm.
the particles were shot through two slits, and I look at her eyes as two slits, but internal.
Mm.
As we start to observe what is happening inside, it collapses the chaotic potential, if that makes sense, and it really just organizes it just by simply observing. So there are many ways to
Mm.
assist with that flow as we are moving. We can look at the particles as movement if we have some sort of an internal movement or inner awareness, such as yourself. I'll use you as the example here, observing the flow, and then the pain and the trauma is in Chinese medicine we say that any root of pain is qi stagnation or any energy stagnation. And by
Mhm.
simple movement and observing, you've like as you witnessed inside yourself, you collapsed the potential, you collapse the waveform that's been stuck in your body, and reintroduced the flow inside yourself. So it's a very powerful, just simple observation, just witnessing without judgment,
Mhm.
without an interpretation, let's say. And
Mm.
and it restores itself. Like the natural environment of the body knows what to do if it's gently observed and witnessed in this manner. So connecting to yourself in Taoist philosophies, we know we are a reflection of the universe that we see outside of ourselves. So when we tap inside, we tap into this universal energy that already exists, and we allow it to flow. Traumatic imprint, often like you've experienced, whether it's done on purpose or whether it's something that's come outside of yourself, creates this imprint where things get stuck. And just by observing based on Taoist philosophies, we become, like I said, to come in tune to the natural rhythms of the environment, which are external and internal to ourselves, and where we restore the flow. Just it's very, it's easier said than done. But with a practice like you have, you're really, really tapping into the power of what the body can do.
One thing I would like to add is kind of this liberating idea that things are always flowing naturally. Like these, it's inherent in the idea of rhythm and vibration. And I see a lot of times it's like, okay, something's stuck and stagnant, and there's this idea that there is no flow. And that is the case, but the body naturally is always flowing. So it's less that there's, as I see it, it's less that there's no flow. It's more that there's something gunking up the flow. And all you have to do is remove that. And then the rest just happens naturally, because then the flow, which is already there, which may be circumnavigating, or you could think of it in a bunch of different ways, then just sweeps it out. It's not that, okay, there's zero movement at all. It's just what's the obstruction to the movement. And so it's like skimming the algae off like a stream or something, and then all of a sudden it starts flowing better. And the stream was already going, but it was just gunked up. Um,
Exactly.
and I think what a lot of people encounter is sometimes they get to these spots, but then they're like, oh, I need to somehow push this energy out. And it's less about pushing it out. It's just more about finding the thing, right, that exists there and cleaning it. My example this morning was recognizing, like, I pushed myself probably not the best way. Like, I was trying to prove myself. I pushed myself sometimes and put hurt on my body in a way that wasn't for my best self-interest, and accumulated these energies and traumas and injuries and stuff. And I was pretty good at this. A lot of people had crazy bad injuries, but even then, some of this stuff gets stuck in you. And yeah, instead of like judging myself, like, okay, that's just what it is, and then it just released. And then even beyond that, I had a voice in my head. It was like, it's like you can heal this if you sit in the pose for an entire 4 minutes. And then I was like, that's like the same voice saying do an extra five, reps at this weight, even though your body was like ready to. It was saying enough is I have had enough, right? So then I actually got out of the pose and I went back in with both legs, but I was going to do like the full 4 minutes. It's the same ego voice saying, "Oh yeah, you can fix this if you just do this," which may have been too much. And
Interesting.
yeah,
I love that awareness and that observation too, because therapy and these things, like if we push ourselves too hard and we think it's therapy, or we think we're doing something, we can actually injure ourselves again, just by that narrative that we hold inside our house, inside our head. If we do this, we're going to have this kind of outcome. Then it sets up the expectation, and we know
mhm,
in Buddhist philosophies, like the root of suffering is expectation and desire, to have a certain
mhm,
outcome, because we know in life and in the way things go, we can set up an expectation, but it never really turns out the way that we picture it, because our picturing or vision has some sort of version of the past that got us into the problem in
mhm.
the first place. So if we let go and simply observe without a narrative or a preconceived outcome, this is where you found yourself in the release and the dissolution, which is brilliant and beautiful. So good on you.
Thanks. So with your practice, your a lot of this is like giving these different perspectives to people, but then also guiding them through like different therapeutic modalities.
This, yeah. So using
Because mindset
using
is like really important, right? Like, okay, what's the mindset? And from there we
huge
can do things.
huge mindset is of the utmost importance. These tools that we integrate and we use with ourselves, if we don't have the appropriate mindset, we're affecting and influencing the energy that's already naturally flowing. So the mindset is important. So sound and frequencies, I really, really like to use. First of all, my own life and my own journey, I found it really effective because there was no word or a word association or a narrative association. It was just pure tones, creating different, say, frequencies. And like our previous conversations, it doesn't necessarily have to be a binaural or something like that, but it needs to introduce like a frequency where there's the interference patterns,
Mhm.
right? And then that creates a state of consciousness inside ourselves where we're able to observe, and then we'll say collapse the waveform that is in the river or the stream. Um, so I find sound very, very effective and powerful. And then with the subconscious mind, working with psychedelics such as psilocybin or these the mushrooms that are making I say a re-debut in society, are very effective with working with the subconscious. But it needs to work with like some sort of movement, like you experienced today. But for me, sound was very powerful for me, because it was non-invasive. There was no physical touching. There wasn't any sort of engagement that way, but it still got into my cellular structure, into my metabolism, and help to ease the flow up. And then in my practice, when I was a doctor of Chinese medicine, I started to incorporate sound with acupuncture and medical
Mhm.
qigong, and it was so very powerful and potent. I began to realize, just using frequencies alone could instill and restore balance inside of myself, and then with other people. So people come and see me, and most of our sessions are sound based, and then we introduce either some movement or some the psychedelic medicines to help ease up the subconscious mind and become aware of what's running in the subconscious. And it's quite powerful. So yeah, I hope that answers your question there.
Well, the couple of things I think of, the first one is like, I think a lot of people with psychedelics think that it raises your brain waves, but what the research shows, it actually decreases those theta, alpha, and beta rhythms. And so it's those subconscious signals, which are weaker, now can stand a little higher because normally the theta, alpha, and beta rhythms are quite strong. And so it's all those interoceptive system signals that are kind of rising to the surface that let you feel that. And I think also anyone that's watching and listening to this will understand kind of you a little better and give it a little bit perspective if they know a little bit about your journey. Because I mean, from what you shared with us at the retreat, you went through the ringer. So like not a lot of people have that life journey. Some people do, but what's interesting about your life journey is that you went like you really had a lot like placed on your shoulders, and then you found the modalities to like bring yourself back and then forward, which is rare because you see a lot of people kind of just content themselves with what the condition is. But I mean, your story was incredible. I'm not sure how much you want to share that, if at all,
I
but
can,
it puts a lot of
yeah, thank you. Thank you. My own life, and thank you for the reflection too, because I don't often realize what I've come through. But it was like my dissatisfaction, and I was not going to be content with diagnosis of psoriatic arthritis and multiple sclerosis as well. Although I had to realize that the Western medical system had to work with those diagnoses, but I realized inside my mind very strongly that if I attached to that narrative inside myself, then my body started to follow in suit. So it was good to know what had happened to me at the convergence point, but there was a huge energetic shift in me in what I was engaging with and what I decided to heal myself, because in my mind I was like, I've got a life to live here, and I do not want this to be the outcome of my life. So in the space and observing what was happening inside of me, learning about alternative medicines, Chinese medicines, and the energy flow and mindset, how my mindset and how my thoughts were actually influencing the energy in my body, and how it was flowing. I began to get out of the way of the natural flow, like the narrative, change
mm,
that with sound, vibration, and frequency. But I had to I'm gonna say, get I'll say not below, but before the narrative, if that's say like a pre-verbal energy, energetic connection, which we we're going to get into a little bit with the brain waves and how I look at them, where delta frequency and theta frequency is pre-verbal, and alpha sort of comes back into like a verbal narrative, and then the beta sort of is like, how am I engaging with the internal and external world, and the gamma is like the sort of a manifestation consciousness. So I had to really drop into the delta, which would be like the spark of like how I'm looking at things, and then theta reorganize like how I want to vision, and then creating a new narrative for myself internally, and how I was then going to engage with the external environment, and also with the people and relationships around me, which is like your gamma theta consciousness. So that's how I started to view it and look at it, and here I am. Here I am on the other side of it. I'm off all of my medications that I was on back in
oh
the
wow.
day, and most importantly, diet, lifestyle, and how my mindset and especially mindset while I'm eating. What are my thoughts while I'm actually eating food?
Mm.
Because as my body digests that, there's an infusion of the narrative, how I'm looking and how I'm feeling about myself.
Yeah, that's something that I practice, and then I also find myself needing to practice like more mindfulness with, because we see all the things that we have to do in the day and say, okay, ciao, let's go. I make sure I don't eat too fast, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's that is a super important part of the day, and like yeah, I often will pray or like infuse energy into the food, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
that's
how
very
to really
very cool.
tap into those frequencies, like the Schumann resonance, right? That's we're looking at the high theta brainwave, and into the alpha and low beta. So just the simple act of connecting to the earth and her earthing and grounding, like I've seen and we've seen on your channel, and you talk about it so nicely, about the connection to the earth and how to ground and center. It's so important, because those resonant waves are flowing in our brain and in our central nervous system. And if we do come out of balance, thank goodness we have Mother Earth, and we have
Yeah.
the sun and the energy of the sun around us, and the planets too, the interstellar cosmos, to tap into. If we get a little offside, and it happens. Life is life, and we can't bypass that or spiritually bypass it. We're human. We have a human experience. So that's I'm gonna say the fun, adventurous part. No matter what happens to us, thank goodness that we have the earth beneath us, and we have the moon, that's helping to move the water systems inside of us, and the sunlight. Oh my goodness! Like if we didn't have the sun, that the energy, the solar energy from the sun. Oh my goodness! I don't know what I would do without a little bit of sun gazing during the day, in the morning and the nighttime,
Mhm.
to actually connect with this. It's a star. We have a star
Yeah.
in our solar system, to connect with that resonance. And I know a lot about that, and it's please tell us more about those energies, and how we can relate that to even mental health and bio health, and all the things.
It's interesting. I had a dream last night about the sun rising, and I was sometimes I know I'm doing a good job with my Russian studying when I have dreams in Russian. And so I was talking to someone and I was describing the sun rising in Russian. And yeah, it's just like, it was interesting because this is just like a foundational thing that a lot of people just take for granted. But I talk to the sun all the time. Usually it's like, yo, what up, Raw? Right. But it's interesting. There's this feedback mechanism in place. I mean, I believe the sun is like this mega consciousness. I mean, think of everything that's happening in our brain is like this small little thing, and then of course the earth is much larger and like much more complex if you look at it in granular detail. So the earth has an even greater consciousness that we are just a part of. We're like the microbiome for the earth, and then the earth is just one small component of like the solar consciousness. So when you say hello to the sun is saying hello right back to you. It's just not in the normal human way. It's in this subtle energy, subtle body way. But there's like it's interesting. There's been so many times where I just will sit and meditate and talk to the sun a little bit, and I get like feedback from it, and not the normal like hello, Stefan, like like that. But it's like and back with like the earthing and stuff too. One of the things that one of the things that's unfortunately too common in society is a lot of people they learn a little bit and then they start like parroting, but they don't have the
Mm.
experience. And so like there's a little everyone does that to some degree. Like I haven't studied quantum physics as much as perhaps like Einstein or something, like certainly not. Um, but I make sure to ground my knowledge as best I can with experience. So with like earthing, for example, I do earthing all the time. And you get different perspectives with earthing when you do it in different ways. Like walking around, like right now I've been raking the yard a lot barefoot. Even though it's fairly cold out, my feet are fine, rake the yard, you're earthing the entire time. That's great. It's more active. But then like the earthing experience when you lay out a blanket and you sleep for like 60, 90 minutes, it's way different than if you take a nap in the house or your normal 8 hour, like let's say sleep. I mean, it honestly feels like your spirit leaves your body and your body just does a complete reboot and then you come back in because it's such a deep like it's so groggy at the beginning because it's a deeper reset. The deeper resets take more time to come online. And you won't, a lot of people aren't talking about that just because they haven't done it. A lot of people think you can do earthing just 2 minutes, put your toe on the ground, just your pinky toe, and then your earth. And it's like you have to get out there and do it. You have to get out there and do the yin yoga. You have to get out there and do the qigong or get the acupuncture sound therapy. I think a lot of it's just like putting in these systems or building momentum by doing these things. And then you put the work in, you get the results. I guess that's what I'm getting at. And so that's mindset. Like you had that mindset shift. It's like, okay, like I can't attach to what they're telling me, but I can definitely get behind I should do this, this, and this, and that will help me heal. And most people never get off medications once they get prescribed. That's just in my life, just seeing people that I know once they get something, typically they're on it. That's not healthy. Now you're tweaking the system. The spider web is now being pulled by all these random things. So it's
It is,
really powerful.
and it's yeah, then and like you're saying, it's a introducing like an artificial, I'm gonna say an artificial disconnect from the root of the manifestation of the
Yeah.
disease, right? So I like the way you say like we are part of the microbiome because the Taoist philosophies say we are the microcosm of the macrocosm, and the earth is in Chinese medicine we relate to the digestive system, and we know that we have a gut biome and a microbiome in our digestive system to absorb the nutrients, but also have a boundary around what we're taking in and what's not useful. So
Mhm.
the constituents that we need through the small intestine and then the large intestine, there's different absorption, but then, the large intestine is a bit of a reabsorption from the
Mhm.
small intestine. But the earth and these brain, these say universal frequencies will help that deep reset. The day's been stressful. We know that the sympathetic nervous system needs to be calmed down, which is affecting the digestive system, which is affecting the earth element. Which and we'll go a little bit further here. The emotional content is worrying and overthinking, and we
Mm.
know that that's not effective. And then the virtue is trust, so we can instill the trust in back inside of our connection, and then our connection to the earth, the microbiome, which is going to affect our absorption rate in the small intestine and the large intestine, which is going to help nourish all of our organs and also our mind and how we think about ourselves.
I guess it also gets back to like the fundamentals. Let's get to the fundamentals. Mindset. Um, but in many ways, I think people's intuition has been eroded or like it hasn't been taught. Like like everyone has certain gifts in life and some people maybe have more spiritual intuition. They just come in with that a little higher because of past life, if you believe that, for example. And so if you once like intuition's like one of these it's like one of these AI algorithms that constantly improves, right? Because intuition will help you improve your intuition. So it's one of these things that can like grow and build itself. So it's just getting it to a point where it can start to optimize itself more quickly. And I think one issue nowadays is that intuition's been eroded to a huge degree. Um, and I don't know exactly why that is. But if you restore intuition, intuition will guide you to all those different things. It helps you to maintain faith and trust in the process. And like, your intuition will lead you to the right mindset, right? It'll lead you to
Right.
make better choices. And then those better choices will bolster your intuition because, oh yeah, I made the right one. And that goes back to like the gut brain axis. Like your
Mm,
microbiome connects to this guy through the vagus nerve. And of course, basically every single organ in your body, as you know. I mean,
right.
speaking generally here. And um, I mean, for example, like just in my life to share, like I recently noticed that I'm just not digesting milk as well, dairy products. I don't know why. I literally used to drink like a gallon of milk a day to like put on weight. It was it's stupid, right? But I never had a problem with this before, but they've linked like casomorphines in milk. These are a type of like protein and casein, like casein, right? They connect like opioid receptors, and they're what make dairy in some ways kind of addictive. Like you want the calf to keep wanting to drink milk or whatever the newborn is. And I think my body's just kind of at a point where it's like, hey, you're old enough now, like it's time to move on. And my microbiome was giving me very clear signals like this is not for you anymore, at least this moment in time. And that was almost beyond intuition. It's just like a very clear signal. But there's some people that will like constantly just ignore like, oh, I've always had milk, therefore I can always still drink milk or
Mm,
cheese and or cream. I mean, I like cream cheese, but um, there's this evolution aspect too. Like intuition will help you guide in this evolution, this
sure.
evolutionary process, and that is that is the truth. Like evolution is like evolve. This is what I was thinking of during Shavasana: is evolve or die,
Yeah,
and that's the truth.
that is the truth.
Like a little bit of my brain was like, "Oh, it's scary." I'm like, but that's like literally the truth on this planet is like evolve or die. If you can't handle that, then like you're not gonna evolve to your highest spiritual benefit.
This is it.
That's what I believe. That's
You
what I
you
believe.
you bring up a great point here because the food we ate as babies is not the food we eat as our in our 20s or our 30s or our 40s, and we have to really listen to where the body's at, and the body knows. The body has an innate wisdom, like the brain stem, what, millions of years old. it
Yeah,
it, it knows, and it
predates all of this.
predates all of this, and it is responsible for governing all of our internal functions, right? Whether we think about it or not, it's governing our cellular respiration. It's governing how our liver functions, how our heart's beating, how our lungs are beating, how our gut is absorbing food. And there's a little switch in there, the autonomic nervous system, that if we are stressed out or overly stressed or in a traumatic response or PTSD, we are in a sympathetic, let's say sympathetic mode or sympathetic response pattern. And with
Mhm.
that, all of the basic functions just go offline, and we're disconnected from our true intuition. We are either running from our life or coming from an emotional based or fear based, anger based, anxiety based response in our body. So this part of our nervous system that's firing off, if we can do things to bring and balance out the parasympathetic nervous response. And we know that the largest branch of the parasympathetic nervous system is the vagus nerve, which is connected to all of our organs. This is where I believe that the disconnect has happened, where if we are living in fear or subconscious fear all the time, we are disconnected from that innate wisdom. We can't listen to our body. We don't know how to listen to it. So this is where we get into what's the right thing and what's the right therapy, and how do we regulate that. One thing is to, with our circadian rhythms, get a good night's sleep so that our body can actually reset and detox from all those stress hormones, the cortisol and the norepinephrine and the
Mhm.
adrenaline. We need to balance that out of our body. If we're getting a good night's sleep, we're actually producing the melatonin to flush that cortisol out of our body so that we can come out of that stress response, allow for that parasympathetic connection where we can tap into the virtues of all of our organs and flush everything out. So,
One thing that I like is I like how learning about brainwaves starts to open up your awareness about just body rhythms in general.
yeah.
Because brainwaves are kind of trendy right now. Like there's devices coming out and this parroting that talking that we mentioned a little bit. That's a little concerning. You see people that are in these bigger positions of power, for example, with these devices or whatever, they don't really know or have experienced too much. But without going into that anymore, like you start to learn about brain waves and the rhythms of our brain, how they're connected to consciousness. They are not consciousness, at least I don't believe so, but they are like if consciousness is like the ship on the water, let's say, brain waves are the waves that come behind it, right? They're just created from our consciousness. That's what it seems to me. But that then leads to this larger awareness of like rhythms of the entire body, because our brain is just like one aspect. It's not the best or biggest thing. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's, it uses 20% of our calories every day, but there's also memory and information and knowledge stored, and not even just in the body, in like our biofield,
Yeah.
right? And then that meshes into the Schumann resonances and these other extremely low frequency signals. So how much of our like energy is there? How much of that is actually ours? Is it collective? Is it ancestral? Is it generational? Is it from our parents, right? There's all those aspects. Then how does that connect to us, our immediate biofield? How do people feel when they're in our proximity, right? I had a biofield tuning where I had someone with one of these tuning forks, and she said that your biofield can tell you like your age. So she went, she's like, oh, like something happened here. Like, what happened when you were 5? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, oh, that's when my parents got divorced. And she like zoned right in on 5. She's like, whoa. She felt like a disresonant vibration at that part of the field. Everything else felt fine. She's like, that feels good. Yeah. But that was like, whoa for her. And so, then you have that energy, and then you have your actual body, which contains probably the most like concrete and hard and stickiest, you could say. I mean, it's like, this is matter, slow, it's dense, it's slow vibration compared to like our biofield. And then the Schumann resonances are just light photons and disturbances in the force. But once you get this clear and clean, and of course it's a process, but once you get it clear and clean, then everything else lightens so much more as a result of that, because this is the heaviest and slowest part. So then like you can start to like open your crown chakra and all the like higher etheric chakras up, and you look up at the stars and you just feel like that connection right away. I don't know, it's just so fun to explore this and like how energy moves through the body and everything, and then connect it to like what we actually know with like hard science. But we're the best instrument.
We are. Yeah, the body and the voice, the resonance that we can create. And you bring up the density of our body. We know that in our DNA is our ancestral rhythms. So that's the imprint coming through us, how we are channeling, how our parents externally related to us is going to influence our behaviors, and from an ancestral lineage and all of the things and all of the imprints. So all of the energies coming out socially, culturally, globally, and planetary and solarly, all of those resonances right there.
This is a great book for anyone that wants to see how like our solar system, our planetary geometry energies, astrology is connected to fate, and then also like ancestral trauma and energy, and like lineage baggage and stuff. I'll put a link in the video description. But
beautiful.
It's interesting because we're like these small little parts of these systems, but we have like we're pretty conscious, and then it's in some aspects like navigating through these things. It's like that wave in Interstellar on that super gravity dense planet. Like we had to learn how to surf like these insane waves because we are like in the grand scheme just like little smotes of like this little quark in the cosmos. But like here are these massive waves, but we're actually like very well equipped to deal with this. Like
Yeah.
things that people go through, some of the stories that just meeting people or that you can read of the past, whatever. I mean, it's incredible. Um,
It
I
is.
mean, your
We are
story is one of those.
yeah, we are more resilient than we've been told that we are. Um, you know, life, like as we grow, right? Even through trauma and the things that have happened to us, life still happens, right? My body still grew. It still
Mm.
evolved. It evolved. I'm speaking. Speaking in terms of like. The body will find a way, no matter how long or how short your life is, or your life turns out to be. It came here, it manifested, it came through, whether it's in utero, whether it is in your younger years or your teenage years. Your body chose to manifest at some point, and then at some point, whether your agreement with the stars or with the universal energies, helps to delineate what your journey's like. So that book that you're bringing in, it shows, at that point of impact. When I say impact, or point of conception, where the cellular meiosis starts to occur, the
Mm.
astrology is at a certain point in time, and those energetics, the gravitational forces, with the energies of the stars and even the black holes, the dark matter, the cosmic energies, are all there influencing this convergence point of who we are and who we are to be.
What I think is important, like going back to intuition and trust and faith, is that we, I mean, I certainly have, by studying this, it's showing a clearly that I want to understand these waves better and to be able to see the picture in higher resolution, right? What waves are coming in, what waves are going out, what's the wave frequency? Are they small? Are they big? Right? That whole deal. What is the interference pattern? That's like a big quest, right? But using astrology, for example, like this summer we had Venus retrograde through Leo. So the sign of Leo, this is Western tropical, and she like went through all the points, and then she went back, and then she went through it again. And it actually started exactly on my moon. It went all the way exactly to my Jupiter and swished past a whole bunch of inner planets in that process. It went back to the moon, then went like this. So you could be like, okay, that was the Leo retrograde wave, right? Well, in astrology, there's also like a solar return chart. And it's like every birthday, that chart on your birthday shows what your next year is going to be like, some of the themes of your year. This is just according to astrology. Well, that chart, like basically that chart, my birthday was right when Leo retrograde ended. So I have this imprint from Leo retrograde in my solar return chart because it's right on my point. So that wave, according to astrology, yeah, you have the initial Leo retrograde wave in real time, but then there's like this other wave, according to astrology, it's like a year long for me. That's the solar return wave that has that baked into it, in addition to other things. And so you wouldn't know that if you didn't study that specific thing. And there's, countless things I haven't studied that I'm totally unaware of, that I'm referencing right now, that would help me to understand this interference pattern of waves, everything in terms of energies affecting my life. And you could look at it in terms of like the collective and society and stuff. And so that's where like faith, intuition, and trust comes in, because you can start to see more and more of it as you study things, but the knowledge is always going to be secondary to what the reality is. And I think a lot of knowledge comes from the microbiome. Like we want to like kind of distill it down. I think a lot of it's like what actually like the little guys that live here, like what are they? Like are they good for you? Like I think a lot of our innate intuition and knowledge comes from the little colony that we have inside of us.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that too. There's a lot of information and a lot of interactions in the microbiome, and then looking outside in the biosphere. What's happening? There's a direct correlation between
Mm.
what's happening in our environment and our internal environment. So but like you say, you listen inside. That's where the inner wisdom and the intuition is coming from. And in Chinese medicine, the spleen and the stomach, or the earth element, represents the yi, which is our intellect and our intuition. So the energetics of the gut and the digestive system is right there.
Could you talk about, I mean, you've done a lot of this sound therapy yourself and you're knowledgeable on this brainwaves and all this stuff. Like you're one of these people that has put the experience behind like what you've learned too. I think you kind of had to in some ways, but what's been your experience with sound therapy and digestive health and the microbiome? Can you speak on that? Because that's like a connection I don't think has really been made too much before, but there
Yeah.
has to be a strong connection there.
There definitely is, and in Chinese medicine, we look at ancestry, which is your DNA, and the what we're taking in through our diet, and also how we're breathing is part of the immune system. It's
Mm,
not
mhm.
not just one aspect. So there's three main components of the immune system, which is our DNA ancestry, and the gut, what we're taking in, food, and mentally and emotionally, what we're digesting, and then how we're breathing, how the chi is moving through our body. So those three components, and with the sound and the brain waves, introducing the sort of the waves in and around the delta. So I liken the delta patterns to be closer to the DNA, and how the DNA is influencing. It's like a very, very subconscious. We're not necessarily aware of what the ancestry imprint is coming through, but it's there. And then we have conscious control about what we're taking in through our food and through our mental state and through our emotional state, which is the digestive system, and then through our chi mechanism, which is based in the lungs and how we're breathing and how our cellular respiration is occurring. Those three components. The alpha the alpha brain waves are what I liken to which is like the mid nodes for the Schumann resonance and the Earth,
Yeah.
are introduced, and then the beta brainwaves, I use in sync with tuning the I want to say the immune system, the
Mm.
ancestral lineage, what we want to draw from, not the destructive things, um, and then to tune into what the boundary is, what say the physical gut and the mental emotional gut are digesting, and that they're absorbing, and then also the chi mechanism, which is the beta state of consciousness, which is we'll look at the relationship between the limbic system and the cortex, right? Like what we are consciously aware of, what we want to consciously infuse inside of ourselves, and how we relate to our environment. So those three brain waves, that's what I would focus on when I'm dealing with or working with those kinds of conditions, or digestive issues specifically.
So you'd be playing tones across theta to beta.
theta, yeah, theta to beta, but and with a root in the delta as well.
Mhm. What's interesting about the earth rhythms is that the Schumann, the first, like the foundational mode of the Schumann resonance, which are these natural standing waves of light energy, that is at 7.8 hertz. So it's like right at that boundary of theta and alpha.
Yeah.
And what we observe, not continuously, but sometimes, are these geomagnetic pulsations that are sub 5 hertz in frequency. So they're in that delta range, but they only come on during like geomagnetic storms, typically.
Interesting.
Sometimes you observe them during like a large earthquake, but you don't have those constantly resonating. Their wavelength is larger than the circumference of the Earth, so they tend to escape out, it seems. But during a solar storm, like the sun carries those super low frequency energies. Like they can be embedded into solar wind, and then when that solar wind hits the Earth, it then transfers that energy into our system. And then we get this big spike in like the 4 hertz, 3 hertz, 2 hertz, 1 hertz bands, even lower frequency, like these ultra long time period pulsations. Some of them can be like 600 seconds, like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes long. Like we see these rhythms start to get, you can pull them out with like Fourier transforms. But it's these ultra slow vibrations. And those are the ones that link to us the strongest, actually. Like the Schumann resonances are linked to us very intimately. But it's when those pulsations come in that our heart really can act up. That's what the research shows. And so, I mean, our brain, big guys, of course. The heart magnetic field is like 100 picotesla. The brain's only like 1, 2, 3 picotesla, maybe a little stronger. So this is like nearly 100 times stronger. And so this connects to those rhythms very easily because your heartbeat at 60 beats per minute, that's 1 hertz.
Right.
That's one of those delta rhythms. So it's more than just the brain. These delta rhythms are entire body. And because they're lower frequency, they can be reached by different parts of the body, all the way head to toe and beyond biofield, with in a way that the signal is still above the noise threshold, the signal to noise ratio. And yeah, those connect to our environment. So it's this interesting combination of how the environment is guiding the heart rhythms, and then how that heart rhythm, that electromagnetic pulse that the heart is shooting off, the dominant one being 1 hertz, but also Schumann and below and above, those are guiding like voltage gradients in our cells, and that influences the expression of DNA and not ancestral DNA. And like, yeah, it's so interlinked, in some ways so complex, it's like a little too much. But if you zoom out, sometimes you can see you have to kind of suspend like the logic brain in some aspects to like see. At least for me, it's like I have a lot of this knowledge, but then I really can kind of understand it in a holistic way beyond words when I just zoom out and like, just look at it in that way.
Sure. Yeah, and as the heart beats, so do our arteries, which extend into our peripheries, right? So,
Yeah, the pulse wave.
those waves that are happening on a planetary scale, that is going to impact our own internal rhythms and heartbeat as well. And this is where the interference patterns happens, and that's some sort of like a shock wave. I'm thinking about an earthquake. It's a breach of the Earth's surface, right? The boundary has been compromised in this wave that's but pulse through, and then in our digestive tract, right? So if there's a digestive issue, there's something that's happened that's breached. I'm going to liken it to leaky gut syndrome, where something's gotten through that wasn't supposed to get through, but something's happened inside the body where it's created this opening. And it's so powerful what can happen with these waves.
And the immune system is interesting. You touched on it earlier, and how the immune system has to make that decision, like between, okay, something's breached this barrier. Is it, it'll see a protein, like, okay, that's clearly not me. But then sometimes we're like, hey, look at this thing. That's not me too, but that's actually like your endothelium cell. And now it's attacking like your the lining of your gut, for example, like your villi, if you have
Yeah.
celiac, and you have gluten, that protein will then trigger the inflammatory immune response on yourself.
Yeah.
And for some people, it bypasses the gut and manifests at the skin, or
That's
manifests here as brain fog or inflammation of the joints. And so it's very odd though, because the immune system is almost like it's part of us, but it almost has to be like separate in some
yeah.
ways to like look at us from like a little bit of a different perspective. And I think it was at the Costa Rica retreat, someone was talking about how perhaps like the foundation of like not self is like rooted in like the immune system, um, and like the differentiation, like the original like ego of like the discerning what's not part of this grander energy, like oneness, right? It's like the immune system comes along and it's like, no, we're going to start splitting things into different categories and adjusting them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the basic function of the immune system, is to distinguish between self and not self.
So I guess a lot of sound therapy, is actually working with the immune system. We think it's working with brain waves. People, and it is. I mean, people will go and like listen to binaural beats
Yeah.
because they want certain brainwave states. And then it can also work with like the body rhythms in general. Very powerful there, especially when it's like a concert or something, it's
Oh yeah.
hitting your entire body. But I guess it's in many ways modulating the immune system at a very deep level.
It is all, all encompassing. The immune system is working all the time. We look at it as the, I think I've heard Gabor Mate refer it to as the floating nervous system. It's
Mm.
there. It's not rooted, and like you say, it's got to be this system which is like inside but outside of yourself. So the immune system, I look at like it's like the part of the fluid, part of the fluid that flows, and it's part of the chi mechanism. It's part of the
Mm.
stabilization of the body, not necessarily the structure of say the cellular structure, or the bone structure. It's the fluid that flows in between the cells, and it's communicating with everything as an extension of the nervous system, and also considered like a floating nervous system, because it can't be part of self, because it's governing what is not part of self, and also what is self. So this is very, very interesting. What is the immune system? Is it like an alien entity? Or is it the God? Is it the God that's flowing, that says this isn't okay or this is okay? And
Hmm.
it's very fascinating. Like I'm still feeling into, like, maybe I don't name it. Maybe it's just part of the Tao, and we don't name it.
Mm. Yeah, the immune system is where a lot of I mean, that's like the root of inflammation in many ways. So like, yeah, you can have these inflammatory cytokines be produced, or reactive oxygen species and free radicals, but a lot of that is produced by the immune system.
Yeah,
And so a lot of these chronic diseases are at their core immune based. And I didn't expect our conversation to go into the immune system, but I like it.
that's good.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's interesting then to think about how like sound and vibration itself is modulating that and causing those cells to behave or react differently. I guess
Yeah,
a parallel I can think of is like if you listen to Bach or Beethoven, or they gave cows Simon and Garfunkel and they produced more milk because they were happier, right?
sure.
Like this thing, like the music that you listen to versus like some really jarring, chaotic music, or
Yeah,
something that's not as coherent, that changes your thought process, your mental like space. And I guess the immune system just likes certain vibrations versus others. One parallel that I can draw is I did a lot of seismic surveying a few years ago, and so I was measuring microtremors. These are they're called passive seismic signals. and they exist all the time. And so you go to into a forest, like away from all like roads and the city and everything, you'll still measure them, but you measure, they're a little bit more like coherent or harmonious. So you get really good seismic data in these quiet locations that are far removed from everything. But if you then do a passive seismic survey, like near a road or in a city, the energy, you can look at the actual like spectrogram of the data, and it gets like way more like non-coherent and crazy and jagged and chaotic. And those microtremors, I mean, you can measure on all frequencies, but the ones that propagate the best are lower in frequency because they don't attenuate out as quickly. They don't get absorbed as quickly, so they can keep flowing. And so they're 30 hertz and below, typically. So like in our environment, these same brainwave frequencies, like, yeah, we have the Schumann resonances in the light component, the electromagnetic component that are typically 30 hertz and below, but we also have seismic microtremors that exist if you're on land that are in the same frequency band, and your environment influences which ones you have more of. A lot of car traffic pushes you up in the 15 to 25 hertz range. Whereas if you're like in a nice secluded like area with some big trees, it's like a gentle breeze, you'll get these wonderful like 0.5 hertz, 1 hertz, 4 hertz signals, like these lower frequency ones. And the data comes out amazing. And so like the actual vibrations of our environment, if sound is influencing our immune system, then our environment and those microtremors would be influencing that as well.
Absolutely.
And so there's like this mindset component, right? There's this intuition component, but then there's also this component of like, yeah, you're still in that environment. So you can have all the intuition and you can have all the mindset, but it's like still, if you're going to keep pouring acid on your hand, I don't know, if you're going to keep pouring acid on your hand, you're going to keep having problems, right? Stop doing that.
Yeah. So they're definitely looking at your environment, like what you're engaging in, right? So the environment is part of like your mental and emotional digestive system, right? That's going to influence your immune system and your inflammatory response. Where you're living, if you're close to a highway or you're living close to an airport, or even you're getting into, we're talking about electromagnetic waves or electric waves if you're living near a power grid. Or something that's giving off EMF signals like the cell towers and the 5G. That this is going to influence the vibration of our body. Especially you're looking at those powerful signals. It doesn't matter if you're thinking kind to yourself or good about yourself. That these signals are bloody powerful. They're gonna affect your biology, the way the body's communicating with the cellular communication, cellular respiration, and then how your immune system is like responding to your own body. So incredibly powerful, and these are the things that we have to look at when things do manifest. What is my environment like, and like what who's around me. What kind of things am I engaging?
Even signals.
Work environment, all of the things.
Yeah, I think kind of the key, because some people may be like, oh well, I can't just go to a hut in the forest. Like anything's possible, but there are some like limits sometimes that exist. Like we're being realistic. But so I think what that means is that if our environment is going to be stronger, then like our regenerative practices and our healing practices and our mindfulness practices need to also get stronger.
Yeah.
And I think in many ways, the people that are recognizing that and jumping and like, then therefore like making sure they balance it out as long as they achieve balance. Like I go to a lot of cities when I travel, but I just make sure I then balance it out in some way as best I can. And so in many ways, this stronger signal over here, people are like, why is this happening? Why are we manifesting this into our environment, right? Like God is good, but we have these big problems now. This is in many ways an evolutionary pressure to learn to do this even more and on a wider collective scale, and not just like at the one little hut up in the Himalayas for the guru in the cave. Like it needs to be a collective thing now. And so in many ways, this is like giving us the impetus to do this. and go deeper into these practices and really master them individually and collectively.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's fine so long as that is there, so long as we do balance it. And
That
then
is,
this isn't the end of the world.
yeah, the balance is key. So you're exactly right. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I mean, I would like to live in the Neolithic in many ways. Like that sounds. And if you learn about the Neolithic, there was like no war or anything. Like I haven't found. I went to a whole bunch of archaeology museums that talked about the Neolithic, and they don't really find. They find like knives, but they don't
Yeah.
find swords.
Yeah.
Like they start finding swords like with like the Bronze Age, basically. There's some copper swords, but the Neolithic sounded pretty great. And you didn't have all these frequencies back then.
True.
So
This
but
is
we wouldn't
true.
be doing this in the Neolithic, right? We wouldn't have this information transfer ability, this ability
Time.
to
We need a time
talk
machine.
across yeah, yeah. Do you think they used how do you like they certainly had all these chanting and different religious practices back then. Like, how well versed in this do you think they were, like our ancient ancestors?
Well, see, singing and definitely drumming were a big play. As a community ceremony, a community gathering. In ancient cultures, it was when you went to see the medicine doctor or the doctoress in your community, there was always some sort of singing or vibrational part of the healing process. So if it was really really difficult manifestation in the body, the shaman or the doctor or the doctoress in the community would call on the community to gather, and that would be often with some sort of fire and
Mm.
elements around, and then chanting and drumming, shakers, movement, all of which would help the person dealing with whatever the imbalance of the frequency was. The mirror neurons, more mirror neurons that gather around will influence the one nervous system with the mirror neurons where it's gone off awry, where the mirror neurons take on or are influenced by the collective in the community with sound and resonance and some of the elements that would help to rebalance and organize the body, the biome, the central nervous system, the brain, and the heart, and all of the things. So they knew thousands and thousands of years ago that sound was really really important, and especially the person that was had fallen ill or out of balance, to help them use their own voice to join in
Mm.
as well, was very very powerful. As we know, the laryngeal pharyngeal branch of the vagus nerve, and then also the auricular branch of the vagus nerve, and the cranial nerve number 8, the vestibulocochlear nerve, which passes through the temporal lobes, which passes through the limbic system, which is influencing then the brainstem from the inside out. So this whole voice, hearing, and our nervous system, we are wired to connect with sound and vibration, with our own voice and with community, to be able to restore balance inside ourselves. From a hormonal level, from a neurotransmitter level, and all of the things that are involved in there. It's pretty freaking amazing. We are.
Yeah, I know that they've been doing some research out of India recently on chanting and how it potentiates brainwaves, specifically, like really pumps up gamma brainwaves,
Yeah.
which has been really cool to see that come out. And they're getting more and more participants now, so they're strengthening that data set, as I understand it. But like, there's this aspect of you can't teach a dog, like an old dog can't learn new tricks, right? And so it's like, okay, well, how can an old dog become a new dog? And I think in some ways that comes down to just like neurogenesis and like, yeah, you have old pathways and you may not just be able to immediately snip those out of your brain. So let's
Yeah.
develop some other pathways and just
Yes.
start walking on those paths more. And then the old paths can like eventually become overgrown and you don't want to walk them anymore.
Exactly.
Um, so when it comes to sound therapy, has there been anything that's really been shown to be very powerful for neurogenesis? Because there's certain herbs, exercise has been linked to neurogenesis,
Mm,
like lion's mane mushroom for the herbs, and like
sure.
psilocybin. The sound therapy, that's the thing, is that it doesn't you can do that anywhere sitting down. If you're like
Yes.
not mobile, you can do sound therapy that can trigger neurogenesis in powerful ways. Like, what are those frequencies, or is it like Om?
It's well, Ohm is a great tone because it uses all of the vowels or the shape or resonance in the mouth, and then also in the using the nasal cavities and the sinuses, which are very crucial to help the
Mm,
brainwave and entrainment. But voice and tone, as as you sing or even talk, it's moving things in the body. So it's an energetic resonance inside yourself and also outside of yourself that can actually help the flow, as we talked at the beginning of this podcast, restoring the flow and dissolving what it is just through vibration and frequency alone. We look at studies, but the real study is inside the, can you feel it? When you're talking, can I feel my own voice, and feel that resonance vibration through ourselves? So we know that singing can create some sort of a wave. We've seen in cymatics that
mm,
we play a frequency and then a certain specific pattern shows up, and then also influencing sound with water. When we play a certain tone, it's going to create ripples through the water. It'll bring back that we're, at least if we're fully hydrated, at least properly hydrated, or at least 70% water. So tone and frequencies are going to influence the and impact the water inside of ourselves. That includes the neurotransmitters, the hormones, the digestive, the stomach, the blood. What else can I name here? The hydration of the skin, right? It's gonna impact the water in the body. So we know, we can see what sound does, and vibration, and we have that capability inside of us to be able to imagine, like, if we knew how to sing ourselves into wellness.
yeah.
And like a lot of people I work with, they're like, well, I don't like the sound of my own voice. I'm like, whoa, hey, what kind of a narrative is
Mm,
that inside
mm,
you, that you don't even like the sound of your own voice? What happened? What happened that somebody said that you didn't sound okay? What is that inside the subconscious? And then usually that happens at a very young age, that our voice is not okay. We don't like the sound of our own voice, and we're told to often be quiet and be silent. um, this is a
tell me
detriment.
about it.
Yeah, okay. It's like, what happened to us as a species, that only certain people were allowed to, or it was okay for them, but it's not okay for me.
Yeah.
What happened, in the psyche. So as the developing, as a, if you're a child, you're developing, that becomes the imprint, that becomes the, well, we'll say the old dog. It becomes so embedded in us that we are afraid to sing because of the negative consequences in our external environment, to engage in our own voice and our own actual resonance. But we all have a voice. We all have these cavities that resonate so very well, and then the different tones that we can articulate, based on the movement of our tongue, and then how we hold our lips is going to require a different response signal from our facial nerve, cranial nerve number 7. And then we've got, there's three branches of cranial nerves that, and I can't remember them exactly off the top of my head, but one of them is directly linked to the part of the cortex where we come up with how we speak and our narrative inside, right? So
Mm.
using tones like om, right? We're creating and this new way of being. And if we're engaging with plant medicines, especially psilocybin, which is promoting neurogenesis in our body, just the natural toning of our voice and engaging with the cranial nerves is going to impact those neural pathways in our central nervous system, from the top down, from the outside in, from our ears, and then also from how we're vocalizing here, which is the top end of our vagus nerve, which is our largest branch of our parasympathetic nervous system. So there's a bit of science there, like however you want to piece it together. This is how we can work and create those new neural pathways.
That's what I so like about this is that there's so many different paths to the same kind of like system, like the truth. Like
Yeah.
there's one truth, and we won't be able to accurately quantify it in this video, but we can get close. And you get closer by looking at it from all these different ways. So
Right.
I think some people are sometimes a little surprised, like with me personally, because I went to school for geology and then I went into geophysics, and they're like, why is this like geophysics guy talking about like gut health? And then it could go even further, like, why is this geophysics, like the science guy, like, why does he entertain the idea of like astrology or anything?
Yeah.
But I find that all these paths like lead to the same destination. And I've always had an interest in health and wellness. I've just as studied there probably as I am with geophysics, like with biology and cellular and all that stuff. And so it was very natural for me to like find all of a sudden the intersection point. And so you go from like there to there, and then there to there. And I mean, just for reference, like, why isn't our mouth and our vocal cords and our lungs like located here? Like it's in these nasal passages, like they're right next to our brain,
Right.
so they can receive the most vibration.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why I can't be like eating through here. Like an octopus has its like mouth. It's kind of under its brain, but it's a little different. But you know, there's different creatures that have different setups.
Yeah.
But we have ours. We have our heart and our lungs right next to each other.
Right.
Our heart, of course, is very important. So the lungs are almost like, where can we like find that middle ground between the body, digestive system, heart, and the brain? Like, where can we find it?
There it
And
is.
so everything seems very intelligently designed, I guess you would say.
It is. It
And
is.
yeah, it's just like it wouldn't make sense in many aspects to have like my mouth on my hand. I mean, maybe it'd be cool. You just like grab a burger and eat it, but it doesn't make sense in regards to what we're talking about. Like you want your brain. It has that thin. It's like it has that small little coating of like cerebrospinal fluid.
Right.
And then you have the pia mater and the dura mater, that covering, and they have magnetosomes. So they have these little bar magnets. Let's use this as a magnet, let's say. These little magnets. And if you're actually vibrating a cell, they're going to vibrate too. And that can convert physical vibrations, sound waves, into electromagnetic signals.
I can.
So they're different, but the wave physics is the same, basically. And there is this like connection between them, which is really interesting. So that's why I find this connection between brain waves and sound and Schumann resonances and heart rhythms and all of it's like in micro tremors, like it's all super connected, but they are different.
Yeah. They are. They are completely different. I'm just looking at the time. I don't want to cut this conversation off, but I do have another call that I got to get into. So I'm wondering if there could be a part 2 for this conversation.
Let's do a part 2. I thank you for jumping on the podcast, and we'll do a part 2 soon because it's not hard to do. So actually, maybe this is better, so it's not a super long. And so for anyone that's watching, if you have certain things that you'd like us to discuss or explore, please leave them as a comment below. And then we can dive into those topics to start with when we do our part 2. Feel Phil Philip has a website and a course on this. So you go to torontosoundtherapy.com to see what him and his team have to offer. Specifically, if you are in the Toronto area or greater, that's excellent stuff. And then there's also a 100-hour online course that you offer?
Yeah, 100 hour certification course in sound therapy if you want to learn a little bit more about sound, the nervous system, the different tones, the different brainwave frequencies. And it is if you are a psychotherapist or a social worker that needs continuing education units. It's been approved by the CRPO and the Social Workers Association in Canada to be able to get your continuing education unit. So that's a bit of a bonus. But if you want to learn at your own pace, it's completely, there's no time limit. And then I'm also accessible to you throughout the course for the duration until you've completed all the hours and for your certification. So
that's a great offer. I mean, I would like to look through that myself. We'll get that set up, but
yeah,
certainly a lot of people will offer less for a lot more in terms of price. So just based on our conversation here, I feel confident saying that. So you're definitely getting good bang for your buck with that. And yeah, it's important that we have this better like conceptual knowledge-based understanding of this stuff because that helps to ground people, I find, and gives them motivation and like inspiration. Like, okay, like we know this works, so we can do it, and that helps to like promote that mindset shift. So I thank you for your work in that. I'm glad that we met, and we will do a part 2. So if you want to see that, please subscribe and just enable notifications if you want. Stefan Burns live podcast. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do, but I'm there's no real content on it right now. This will probably be the first part of this interview and this podcast. I will definitely link this to my YouTube channel.
Okay, so I'll put your Instagram and I'll put your YouTube in the video description too. If you want to learn everything about Phil, you can do so, and I hope you do.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining the podcast, and I hope you have a great day. And thanks everyone for watching.
Thank you, Stefan.